My daughter-in-law mocked my cooking. 2 hours later, she was begging in tears. The late afternoon sun filtered through my kitchen windows, casting golden streaks across the marble countertops I'd saved for years to afford. I stood at my vintage oak cutting board, the one my mother had given me 40 years ago, carefully dicing onions with the precision that came from decades of practice. The familiar rhythm of the knife against wood was meditative, almost sacred. My name is Margaret Sullivan, but everyone calls me Maggie. I'm 62 years old, a widow of 5 years and the mother of one son, my beautiful, successful, but sometimes painfully oblivious David. Today was supposed to be special. It was the first time in 3 months that David and his wife, Vanessa, were coming over for Sunday dinner. I had been planning this meal for weeks. Not just planning, obsessing over it. I wanted everything to be perfect. You see, things had been tense between Vanessa and me ever since the wedding 2 years ago. Nothing dramatic, nothing you could put your finger on exactly, just a subtle coolness, a distance that I couldn't quite bridge no matter how hard I tried. The menu was ambitious. My signature pot roast with red wine reduction, the recipe passed down from my grandmother who'd immigrated from Ireland with nothing but her cooking skills and her faith. Creamy mashed potatoes with roasted garlic. Green beans almondine. Homemade dinner rolls that required 3 rises and patience I was happy to give. And for dessert, my famous apple pie with a lattice crust that had won the county fair blue ribbon 5 years running. I'd been cooking since 6 that morning. The house smelled like heaven, rich, savory, warm like home should smell. Like love should smell if love had a scent. My kitchen was my sanctuary. Cream-colored cabinets that David's father, Thomas, had installed himself before the cancer took him. Copper pots hanging from a rack Thomas had surprised me with on our 20th anniversary. Every corner held a memory, every appliance told a story. This kitchen had seen birthday cakes and holiday feasts, had witnessed tears over burnt cookies and triumphant first attempts at soufflés. It was where I'd taught David to crack eggs and flip pancakes, where we'd had our deepest conversations over cookie dough and coffee. The pot roast had been braising for 4 hours, and when I lifted the heavy Dutch oven lid, steam billowed up carrying the most intoxicating aroma. Beef, wine, herbs, carrots, and onions all melding into something greater than the sum of their parts. I pressed the meat gently with my wooden spoon, and it yielded perfectly, falling apart at the slightest pressure. "Perfect," I whispered to myself, a smile tugging at my lips. I glanced at the antique clock on the wall, a wedding gift from my parents. 4:30. David and Vanessa would arrive at 5:30. Just enough time to set the table, touch up my makeup, and change into something nicer than my flour-dusted apron and comfortable cooking clothes. The dining room table was already partially set. I'd used my mother's fine china, delicate white plates with a gold rim and tiny blue flowers painted by hand. The silverware was real silver, tarnished slightly despite my best polishing efforts, but beautiful in its aged elegance. Crystal wine glasses caught the light from the chandelier. A centerpiece of fresh flowers from my garden, roses, daisies, and baby's breath, added a pop of color and life. I wanted Vanessa to feel welcome, to feel like family. I'd tried so hard over the past 2 years, but every attempt seemed to fall flat. Every invitation was met with excuses. Every conversation felt forced. Every gift I gave her seemed to disappoint, though she was always polite about it. Too polite. The kind of polite that creates distance rather than bridges it. David kept assuring me that everything was fine, that Vanessa was just busy with work, that I was overthinking things. But a mother knows. A mother can sense these things in her bones. Vanessa worked in marketing for a tech startup in the city, one of those companies where everyone was under 35, where they had ping-pong tables and kombucha on tap and called Friday afternoons innovation time. She made good money, wore expensive clothes, and talked about things I didn't always understand, algorithms and brand synergy and disruption. She was beautiful too, tall and willowy with perfect blonde hair that never seemed to frizz, even in humidity, and a face that belonged in magazines. Sometimes I wondered what she saw in my David. Don't get me wrong, I love my son more than life itself, and I think he's wonderful. But David was normal. He was a middle school math teacher, solid and dependable, with a receding hairline and a dad bod that he'd started developing around age 30. He wore khakis and button-down shirts and got genuinely excited about things like new protractors and teaching kids about Pythagorean theorem. They seemed mismatched to me, but David was happy, and that's what mattered. He looked at her like she hung the moon and stars, and most of the time she seemed to return that affection. Most of the time. I finished preparing the green beans, blanching them quickly before tossing them with slivered almonds that I'd toasted to golden perfection. The dinner rolls were cooling on a wire rack, their crusts a beautiful honey brown. The mashed potatoes were staying warm in a covered dish. Everything was coming together beautifully. I headed upstairs to change, stripping off my apron and cooking clothes. I chose a navy blue blouse and gray slacks, nothing too fancy, nothing that would make it seem like I'd tried too hard. A touch of lipstick, a quick brush through my short silver hair, and I was ready. Back downstairs, I gave everything one final check. The table looked beautiful. The food smelled amazing. The house was clean and welcoming. I'd even put out the fancy hand towels in the bathroom, the ones with the embroidered edges that we never actually used. At 5:25, I heard a car pull into the driveway. My heart did a little flutter, part excitement, part nervousness. I smoothed down my blouse, took a deep breath, and went to the front door. Through the beveled glass, I could see them getting out of David's sedan. David, with his sweet face and warm smile, wearing a nice shirt I'd given him for Christmas. And Vanessa, stunning as always in skinny jeans and a cashmere sweater that probably cost more than my monthly grocery budget, her designer handbag slung over one shoulder. I opened the door before they could knock, a wide smile on my face. "David, Vanessa, come in, come in." David immediately wrapped me in a bear hug, lifting me slightly off my feet as he always did. "Hey, Mom, something smells incredible." "It's just Sunday dinner," I said, but I was beaming. "Nothing special." Vanessa stepped forward, and we did our awkward dance, me going for a hug, her offering a cheek for a kiss, us both adjusting and ending up in some strange half-embrace that satisfied neither of us. "Hi, Margaret," she said, her voice pleasant but distant. "Thanks for having us." "Of course, you're always welcome here. This is your home too," I said, meaning every word, hoping she could hear the sincerity. She smiled, but it didn't quite reach her eyes. They followed me into the house. David immediately headed for the kitchen, drawn by the smell like he'd been as a boy. Vanessa trailed behind, her heels clicking on the hardwood floors. "Mom, seriously, what did you make? It smells like Thanksgiving and Christmas had a baby," David said, already lifting pot lids. I laughed, swatting his hand away. "You'll see. Go sit down, both of you. I'll bring everything out." "Can I help?" David offered, as he always did. "Absolutely not. You're my guest today. Go sit, relax." David shrugged and headed toward the dining room. Vanessa lingered in the kitchen doorway for a moment, her eyes scanning the space. I couldn't quite read her expression. "You can go ahead and sit too, dear," I said gently. "I've got everything under control." She nodded and followed David to the dining room. I began the careful process of bringing everything out. First, the pot roast, still steaming in its Dutch oven, the meat falling apart in tender chunks surrounded by perfectly cooked vegetables in that rich, dark gravy. Then the mashed potatoes, fluffy and golden with butter. The green beans, still crisp and bright green. The basket of warm rolls with butter on the side. Each time I brought out a dish, David made appreciative noises. Vanessa was quiet, her face neutral. Finally, everything was on the table. I poured wine for all of us, a nice Cabernet that I'd bought specifically for this dinner, and sat down at the head of the table, David to my right, Vanessa to my left. "This looks wonderful, Mom," David said, already reaching for the serving spoon. "Thank you, sweetheart. I hope you both enjoy it." I looked at Vanessa. "Vanessa, I made sure not to use any mushrooms. I remembered you mentioned you don't like them." It was true. I'd remembered a passing comment she'd made 6 months ago at a restaurant. I'd been keeping track, trying to learn her preferences, hopping to show her I cared. "Oh," she said, seeming slightly surprised. "Thank you." We began passing dishes, filling our plates. David piled his high with everything, as he always did. Vanessa took modest portions, arranging them carefully on her plate. "So, how's school going, David?" I asked as we started eating. "You mentioned that new curriculum you were trying." David launched into an enthusiastic explanation about gamifying math lessons, making everything more interactive for his 7th graders. I listened attentively, asking questions, genuinely interested. Teaching had always been David's passion, ever since he was young and would line up his stuffed animals to teach them. I noticed Vanessa picking at her food, taking small, careful bites. She was eating, but slowly, without enthusiasm. "How is it?" I asked, unable to help myself. "The pot roast, I used my grandmother's recipe." David answered with his mouth full. "It's delicious, Mom. It's always delicious." Vanessa took another small bite, chewed carefully, and swallowed. "It's fine." Fine, the word hung in the air like a damp towel. Not good, not delicious, not wonderful. Fine. Just fine. I tried to keep my voice light, teasing, but I could hear the slight edge to it. Vanessa set down her fork, taking a sip of wine. "It's a bit heavy, isn't it? And the meat is so tender it's almost mushy. I prefer my beef with a little more texture." The room went quiet. David stopped mid-chew, looking between his wife and his mother with wide eyes. I felt something twist in my chest. It's supposed to be tender. It's been braising for 4 hours. That's how pot roast is made." "I know," Vanessa said, her tone matter-of-fact, not unkind but not warm either. "I'm just saying it's not really my style. I prefer lighter fare, more contemporary cooking techniques. This is very—" She paused, seeming to search for the word. "Traditional." Traditional. The way she said it, it sounded like outdated. "Nessa," David said quietly, a warning in his voice. She looked at him, then back at me. "I'm just being honest. Margaret asked what I thought." "You said it was fine," I replied, working hard to keep my voice steady. "It is fine. It's just not exceptional. It's the kind of food you'd get at a chain restaurant, you know, like Cracker Barrel or something." I felt my face flush hot. 40 years of cooking, of perfecting recipes, of pouring love into every meal, compared to Cracker Barrel. My grandmother's recipe, the one that had fed generations of our family, dismissed as chain restaurant fare. "Vanessa," David said more firmly now, "that's not—" "What? I'm being honest. Your mom seems like someone who values honesty. Besides, maybe she'd want to know that her cooking is a bit outdated. There are so many amazing cooking techniques now. Sous vide, molecular gastronomy, fusion cuisine. This is just boiled meat and vegetables." "It's braised," I said quietly. "There's a difference." She waved a hand dismissively. "Whatever. The point is, cooking has evolved. My mother takes these amazing cooking classes in the city. She's learned how to make foams and reductions and—" "This has a reduction," I interrupted, hearing my own voice rising slightly. "The red wine reduction, it's a classic French technique." "If you say so." Vanessa took another sip of wine. "The rolls are a little dense too, by the way. Were they supposed to rise more? And these mashed potatoes." She poked at them with her fork. "They're pretty caloric. Do you know how much butter and cream is in here? I try to watch what I eat." I sat there, my hands folded in my lap under the table, gripping each other so tightly my knuckles were white. Each word felt like a small knife, not deadly on its own, but in accumulation, devastating. David had stopped eating entirely. "Vanessa, stop. This is incredibly rude." "I'm not being rude, I'm being truthful. Your mom is a grown woman, she can handle honest feedback." She turned to me, and I saw something in her eyes, not quite cruelty, but a kind of cool superiority. "Margaret, you're clearly very invested in cooking. Maybe you should take some classes, update your skills. I could send you information about the school my mother goes to. They have courses for home cooks who want to learn proper techniques." Proper techniques. As if everything I'd learned from my mother and grandmother, as if 40 years of feeding my family with love, meant nothing. "I think my techniques are just fine," I said, my voice barely above a whisper. Do you though? Vanessa leaned back in her chair. Because honestly, this whole meal is just very pedestrian. It's the kind of thing anyone could make if they followed a recipe. There's no artistry to it, no creativity. It's just standard, boring even. Vanessa, David's voice was loud now, angry. That's enough. What? Why are you getting so upset? Vanessa looked genuinely confused. I'm trying to help. Your mom has been cooking the same way for probably decades. Maybe she needs someone to tell her that the world has moved on, that there are better ways to cook now. I stood up abruptly, my chair scraping against the floor. The sound was harsh in the tense silence. Excuse me, I managed to say, my voice shaking. I need to. I'll just be a moment. I walked quickly toward the kitchen, my eyes burning with tears I refused to let fall in front of her. Behind me, I could hear David's voice, sharp and angry, and Vanessa's responding with that same cool detachment. In the kitchen, I gripped the edge of the counter, breathing deeply, trying to compose myself. My pot roast, the one I'd started at 6 in the morning, the one made with my grandmother's recipe, the one that had fed 4 generations of Sullivans, dismissed as boring and pedestrian. My rolls, which I'd labored over, waking up early to time the rises perfectly, too dense. My mashed potatoes, made with the exact ratio of butter to cream that Thomas had loved, too caloric. I heard footsteps behind me and quickly wiped at my eyes. Mom, David's voice was soft, pained. I turned to face him, forcing a smile. It's fine, sweetie. She's entitled to her opinion. It's not fine. What she said was inexcusable. I'm so sorry. Don't apologize for your wife. I reached out and squeezed his hand. You didn't do anything wrong. But she was honest, that's okay. Maybe she's right. Maybe my cooking is outdated. Mom, no, your cooking is amazing. It's always been amazing. She's just... He trailed off, searching for words. Just what? Vanessa's voice came from the kitchen doorway. She stood there, arms crossed, looking more annoyed than apologetic. David, why are you making this such a big deal? I gave some constructive criticism, that's all. Constructive criticism. David turned to face her, his voice rising. You basically told my mom that 40 years of cooking means nothing, that her food is boring and pedestrian and comparable to chain restaurant food. I was trying to help her improve. By insulting her, by belittling something she put hours of work into. Vanessa rolled her eyes, actually rolled her eyes. Oh my God, you're being so dramatic. It's just food, David. Just food. Those 2 words crystallized something for me, because for Vanessa, maybe it was just food. But for me, food was how I showed love. It was how I'd comforted David through scraped knees and broken hearts. It was how I'd celebrated every achievement, every milestone. It was how I'd kept my family together after Thomas died, sitting around this table, eating and talking and staying connected. Food was never just food in my house. It was memory and tradition and love made tangible. I think maybe you should both go, I said quietly. David turned to me, his face stricken. Mom. No, it's okay. Really, you should go home. I looked at Vanessa. Thank you for your honesty, Vanessa. I appreciate you taking the time to share your thoughts on my cooking. Even in my hurt, in my anger that I was fighting to keep controlled, I couldn't be cruel. It wasn't in my nature. Vanessa had the grace to look slightly uncomfortable. Margaret, I didn't mean to upset you. I was just trying to... I know, it's fine. I smoothed down my blouse, straightened my shoulders. But I think it's best if you both go now. David, we can do this another time. Mom, please. David, I looked at my son, let him see in my eyes that I needed this. Needed them to leave before I completely broke down. Please. He nodded slowly, his jaw tight with anger that wasn't directed at me. Okay, we'll go, but Mom, I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. Don't be. I managed a smile for him. Drive safely. I walked them to the door, maintaining my composure through sheer force of will. Vanessa mumbled something that might have been an apology or might have been goodbye. David hugged me tightly, whispering another apology against my hair. And then they were gone. I stood in my doorway, watching David's car back out of the driveway and disappear down the street. The sun was setting now, painting the sky in shades of orange and pink. A beautiful evening. The kind of evening Thomas and I used to sit on the porch and watch together. I closed the door and turned to face my house. The dining room table was still set with my mother's china and the food I'd worked so hard on, most of it uneaten. That's when I finally let myself cry. I didn't clean up that night. I couldn't. I walked past the dining room table, past the congealing pot roast and the cooling mashed potatoes, and went upstairs to my bedroom. I climbed into bed fully clothed and stared at the ceiling until exhaustion pulled me under. When I woke up the next morning, for a blissful moment I'd forgotten what happened. Then it all came rushing back, Vanessa's words, the dismissive tone, the casual cruelty dressed up as constructive criticism. Pedestrian, boring, just standard, chain restaurant quality. I lay in bed for another hour, not wanting to face the kitchen, not wanting to see the evidence of my failure. Because that's what it felt like, failure. I'd tried so hard to bridge the gap with Vanessa, to show her I cared, to make her feel like family. And instead, I'd been found wanting. My best wasn't good enough. Finally, I forced myself up. The dining room was exactly as I'd left it, the food now completely cold. I began the process of cleaning up, scraping plates, wrapping leftovers, washing dishes. The pot roast that had smelled so heavenly yesterday now just looked sad and brown. I put it in a container and shoved it in the fridge, unable to look at it anymore. My phone buzzed on the counter, a text from David. "Mom, I'm so sorry about last night. Can I come over today after school? I want to talk." I texted back, "It's fine, sweetheart. Let's give it a few days. Love you." "Love you too. I'm really sorry." I set down the phone and continued cleaning. The motions were automatic: rinse, soap, scrub, dry. I'd done these same movements thousands of times in this kitchen, but today they felt hollow. Over the next few days, David called and texted repeatedly. I kept my responses light and brief. Yes, I was fine. No, I wasn't angry. Yes, we could have dinner soon, just not right now. I needed some time. I didn't cook that week. For the first time in decades, I didn't cook. I ate cereal for breakfast, sandwiches for lunch, and takeout for dinner. My kitchen, usually the heart of my home, felt cold and uninviting. A week after the disastrous dinner, David showed up unannounced. I heard his key in the lock. I'd never taken it back, had always wanted him to feel like this was still his home, and his voice calling out. "Mom, you here?" I was in the living room, reading, or pretending to read. Mostly I'd been staring at the same page for 20 minutes. "In here," I called back. David appeared in the doorway, and my heart clenched. He looked tired, worry etched on his face. He was carrying a bouquet of flowers, daisies, my favorite. "Hi, Mom." He sat down next to me on the couch, handed me the flowers. "They're beautiful, thank you." "How are you?" "I'm fine, David, really." "You're not fine, I know you're not." He took my hand. "Mom, what Vanessa said, it was wrong, it was cruel. I've been furious with her all week." "Don't be angry at your wife on my account." "She insulted you. She insulted your cooking, which is insulting everything you've ever done for our family. For me." His voice cracked slightly. "Do you know how many times I've bragged about your cooking? How many times I've told people about your pot roast, your apple pie? You're an incredible cook, Mom, the best I know." "You're biased," I said softly, but I squeezed his hand. "Maybe, but I'm also right," he sighed. "Vanessa and I have been fighting about this all week. She doesn't understand why it's such a big deal." "Maybe because for her, it isn't. For her, it really is just food." "But that's not an excuse to be cruel." "No," I agreed. "It's not." We sat in silence for a moment. "She wants to apologize," David finally said. I stiffened slightly. "She doesn't need to." "Mom." "David, I mean it. An apology that she's being forced to give isn't worth anything. If she's sorry, truly sorry, she'll figure out how to show me. In her own time." David nodded slowly. "Okay, but for what it's worth, I told her that what she did was unacceptable. That my mom is the most important woman in my life, besides her, and that I won't tolerate anyone treating you like that." What did she say? He looked uncomfortable. She said I'm a mama's boy who can't handle honest opinions. I felt a flash of anger on David's behalf. That's not fair to you. No, it's not, but we're working through it. He looked at me seriously. Mom, I love Vanessa, I do, but I love you too, and I need both of you to find a way to get along. I've been trying to get along with her for 2 years, sweetheart. I know you have. He ran a hand through his hair, a gesture he'd done since childhood when he was stressed. She can be difficult. She didn't have the warmest upbringing. Her parents were very critical, very focused on achievement and perfection. I think sometimes she doesn't realize how her words come across. I understood what he was doing, trying to help me see her perspective, to humanize her. It was kind of him, but it didn't erase the hurt. I appreciate you trying to explain, I said gently. And I'm not going to stand in the way of your marriage, David. I would never do that, but I also need some time. Okay. He nodded, looking miserable. Okay. We talked for a while longer about other things. His students, his lesson plans, a funny story about one of his 7th graders. He was trying to make me laugh, and I let him, because I could see how much my sadness was hurting him. After he left, I put the daisies in a vase and set them on the kitchen counter. They added a spot of brightness to the space. I stared at them for a long moment, then, almost without thinking, I opened my recipe box. It was an old wooden box, worn smooth by decades of use. Inside were hundreds of recipe cards, some in my handwriting, some in my mother's elegant script, some in my grandmother's spidery cursive. Recipes for everything: Christmas cookies and Easter hams, birthday cakes and funeral casseroles, Tuesday night dinners and special occasion feasts. Each card was a memory. Each ingredient list was a story. I pulled out my grandmother's pot roast recipe. The card was stained and faded, the corners bent. I'd made this recipe hundreds of times, and it was good. No matter what Vanessa said, I knew it was good. Pedestrian, boring, chain restaurant quality. The words still stung. I put the recipe card back and closed the box. Maybe, I thought, it was time to stop cooking, to stop putting myself out there only to be criticized and found wanting. I'd cooked for my family for 40 years. Maybe that was enough. Maybe it was time to let go. The thought should have been freeing, but instead it made me feel hollow. 2 weeks after the dinner debacle, my phone rang at 8 in the morning. Unknown number. I almost didn't answer, but something made me pick up. Hello? Mrs. Sullivan, Margaret Sullivan. A woman's voice, professional and crisp. Yes, this is she. My name is Jennifer Chen. I'm a producer for the Cooking Network. Do you have a few moments to talk? I blinked, confused. The Cooking Network? I think you have the wrong person. Are you the Margaret Sullivan, who won the county fair blue ribbon for apple pie 5 years in a row? Well, yes, but that was years ago. I haven't entered in. Perfect. Mrs. Sullivan, we're putting together a new show concept. It's called Home Cooking Heroes. The premise is that we find incredible home cooks, people who have been cooking for their families for years, who have amazing recipes and techniques that they've perfected, but who have never had professional training. We want to celebrate real, authentic home cooking. I sat down at my kitchen table, trying to process this. I don't understand. How did you find me? We've been scouting county fairs and local cooking competitions across the country. Your name came up multiple times from different sources. People in your area speak very highly of your cooking. One person we interviewed, a Mrs. Henderson, said you make the best pot roast she's ever had. Eleanor Henderson was my neighbor of 15 years. We'd exchanged meals and recipes countless times. That's very kind of her, but I'm really just a home cook. I don't have training or... That's exactly what we want. Jennifer's enthusiasm was palpable even over the phone. Mrs. Sullivan, the world is full of fancy restaurants and celebrity chefs. But what about the women and men who have been cooking incredible food for decades without any recognition? Who have perfected recipes through trial and error, who know how to make a meal that tastes like home and love? That's what we want to showcase. I appreciate the offer, but I don't think I'm interested in being on television. I understand it might seem daunting, but would you at least be willing to meet with me? I'm actually going to be in your area next week. I could come by, we could talk more about the show, you could ask questions. No pressure, just a conversation. I should have said no. I should have politely declined and gone back to my quiet life. But something in me, maybe pride, maybe stubbornness, maybe just a need to feel valued again, made me say, okay, one conversation. Wonderful, how about next Tuesday, around 10 in the morning? We arranged the details and hung up. I sat at my kitchen table, staring at my phone, wondering what on earth I'd just agreed to. That evening, I called my best friend, Patricia. We'd known each other since our kids were in elementary school together. She'd been my rock after Thomas died, and she knew all about the situation with Vanessa. Patty, the strangest thing happened today, I started, and told her about the phone call. Oh my God, Maggie, that's amazing. It's bizarre, is what it is. Why would a cooking show want me? Because you're an incredible cook. Remember the lasagna you made for my daughter's graduation? People are still talking about it. That was 3 years ago. Exactly, 3 years and people still remember. That's the mark of truly great food. I could hear her smiling through the phone. Are you going to do it? I don't know, probably not. I mean, can you imagine? Me on television. I absolutely can imagine it, and you should do it. Why? Because you've spent 2 weeks mopping around feeling sorry for yourself. I have not been mopping. Yes, you have. David told Roger and Roger told me. You haven't cooked in 2 weeks, Maggie. That's not like you. Roger was Patricia's husband, and yes, he and David played golf together. Of course they'd talked. I just needed a break, I said defensively. From what? From the thing you love. Because one ungrateful girl with more money than sense hurt your feelings. I was quiet. Maggie, listen to me. You are one of the best cooks I know. Period. Your food is incredible. It's made with love and skill and years of experience. Don't let some uppity millennial who probably can't boil water make you doubt yourself. She can probably boil water, I said, but I was smiling slightly. The point is, this is an opportunity. Even if you don't do the show, meeting with this producer might be good for you. Remind you that your cooking is valued, that you're talented. I don't know, Patty. It feels weird, like I'd be doing it to prove something to Vanessa. So what if you are? Maybe she needs a reminder that you're pretty damn spectacular. We talked for another hour about everything and nothing. By the time we hung up, I felt lighter than I had in weeks. Tuesday came quickly. I spent Monday cleaning the house top to bottom, then realized how ridiculous that was. The producer was coming to talk, not to inspect my baseboards. Still, I wanted to make a good impression. Jennifer Chen arrived exactly at 10, professional and warm. She was younger than I expected, maybe in her mid-30s, with kind eyes and an easy smile. I made tea, and we sat in my living room. This is a beautiful home, she said, looking around. How long have you lived here? 38 years. My husband and I bought it when our son was a baby. And you've been cooking all that time? Longer. My mother taught me when I was young, and she learned from her mother. Cooking has always been a big part of my life. Jennifer pulled out a tablet and started showing me concepts for the show. It would feature 8 home cooks from around the country. Each episode would focus on one cook, showing their signature dishes, telling their stories, celebrating their recipes and techniques. It's not a competition, she emphasized. We're not looking for drama or conflict. We just want to honor these amazing cooks who have been feeding their families and communities for years. Why now? I asked. Why this show concept? Jennifer smiled. Honestly, because my own grandmother passed away last year, and I realized I never learned her recipes. She made this incredible stew that I can still taste, but the recipe died with her. I started thinking about how many amazing cooks there are who'll never be recognized, whose recipes might be lost. This show is, in some ways, my way of honoring my grandmother. I felt tears prick my eyes. I'm sorry about your grandmother. Thank you, she would have loved this show concept. Jennifer leaned forward. Mrs. Sullivan, I've done my research. I've talked to people in your community. Everyone speaks about your cooking with this reverence, this love. That's rare. That's special. And that's exactly what we want to capture. I don't know what to say. Say you'll think about it. We'd film here in your kitchen over the course of a few days. You'd cook your signature dishes, tell your stories. We'd interview family and friends. It would be a beautiful tribute to your cooking and your family's culinary legacy. I thought about my recipe box, about my grandmother's cards, about all those years of cooking for Thomas and David, about the love poured into every meal. Can I think about it? I asked. Of course, take a week. Here's my card, call me anytime. She stood to leave, then paused. Mrs. Sullivan, can I ask you something? You seem hesitant. Is there a reason why? I considered lying, but something about her openness made me want to be honest. Someone recently told me my cooking was pedestrian, boring, outdated. It made me question whether I'm actually as good as people say. Jennifer's eyes flashed with something, anger maybe, or fierce disagreement. Mrs. Sullivan, do you know what's wrong with the food world right now? Everyone's chasing trends. Molecular gastronomy, fusion this, deconstructed that. And it's all fine, it has its place. But we've lost touch with what really matters. Food that nourishes not just the body but the soul. Food made with love and care and tradition. That's not outdated. That's timeless. After she left, I sat in my kitchen for a long time, her words echoing in my mind. Timeless, not outdated. I opened my recipe box again, pulled out my grandmother's pot roast recipe. This time, instead of pain, I felt something else. Pride, maybe, or defiance. I called Jennifer that evening. I'll do it, I said. I'll do your show. Chapter 4, Preparation and Revelation. The next few weeks were a whirlwind. Jennifer and her team came to my house multiple times, planning shot lists, discussing which recipes to feature, interviewing neighbors and friends. Patricia was thrilled, giving an enthusiastic interview about my cooking that made me tear up. David was cautiously supportive when I told him. Mom, that's incredible, but are you sure? Television can be intense. I'm sure. I want to do this. What about Vanessa? He asked carefully. Have you thought about how she might react? I had thought about it. Quite a bit, actually. Part of me, the petty part I wasn't particularly proud of, wanted Vanessa to see it. To understand that maybe, just maybe, her opinion wasn't the only one that mattered. I'm not doing this to spite your wife, David. I'm doing it for me. To honor my cooking, my family's recipes, my grandmother's legacy. I know, Mom, I know. He hugged me. I'm proud of you. You haven't told Vanessa yet, have you? He looked uncomfortable. No, things have been tense between us. We're still working through the dinner incident. I didn't want to add more fuel to the fire. That's probably wise. Filming was scheduled for a Wednesday, 2 months after the original dinner disaster. The production crew would arrive at 7 in the morning and film throughout the day. They wanted to capture me making 3 dishes, the pot roast, my apple pie, and my mother's recipe for chicken soup that I'd learned as a girl. The night before filming, I couldn't sleep. I lay in bed, alternating between excitement and terror. What if I messed up? What if I forgot ingredients? What if the food didn't turn out right? At 5 in the morning, I gave up on sleep and went downstairs. I started preparing, organizing ingredients, reviewing recipes I could probably make in my sleep. The familiar motions calmed me. The crew arrived at 7 sharp. Jennifer, 2 cameramen, a sound person, and a production assistant named Marcus who was cheerful and efficient. They immediately began setting up lights and cameras in my kitchen. Mrs. Sullivan, just cook like you normally would, Jennifer instructed. Pretend we're not here. Talk us through what you're doing, share stories, be yourself. Easier said than done, with 3 cameras pointed at me. But once I started cooking, once my hands were in the dough for the pie crust, once I was browning the meat for the pot roast, I forgot about the cameras. I fell into the rhythm I'd known for 40 years. I talked about my grandmother, about learning these recipes as a young bride, about cooking for Thomas, about teaching David. Food is how I show love, I said to the camera, not rehearsed, just honest. When my son was sad, I made his favorite cookies. When my husband had a hard day, I made his favorite dinner. When someone in our church lost a loved one, I brought them a casserole. Food is connection. It's memory. It's love made visible. Jennifer was watching with tears in her eyes. We broke for lunch. The crew had brought sandwiches and then continued filming. The chicken soup, simmering on the stove, filled the house with the most comforting aroma. The pot roast was browning beautifully in the oven. The apple pie crust was turning golden. Around 3 in the afternoon, as I was putting the finishing touches on the pie, the doorbell rang. "Don't worry about it," Marcus said. "We can edit out the interruption." But through the kitchen window, I could see David's car in the driveway. And not just David, Vanessa was with him. My heart started pounding. "Actually," I said to Jennifer, "that's my son. Would it be okay if I answered? I should probably tell him we're filming." "Of course, we'll pause." I wiped my hands on my apron and went to the front door. David stood there looking apologetic. Vanessa stood beside him, her expression unreadable. "Mom, I'm so sorry to interrupt. I know you said you were busy today, but Vanessa wanted to," David started. "I wanted to apologize," Vanessa interrupted, her voice quiet, "properly, for what I said at dinner. Of all the times for this conversation. This really isn't a good moment," I began. "Mrs. Sullivan," Jennifer appeared behind me. "Everything okay?" Vanessa's eyes went wide, taking in Jennifer, then looking past me into the house where she could probably see the lighting equipment and cameras. "What's going on?" David asked, confused. "I'm filming a cooking show," I said simply. "For the Cooking Network. They're doing a segment on home cooks and they chose me." The look on Vanessa's face was almost comical, shock, disbelief, and something else. Was that embarrassment? "A cooking show," she repeated. "You." There it was again, that subtle dismissiveness. You, as if I were the least likely person to be on a cooking show. "Yes, me." I stood a little straighter. "They contacted me a few weeks ago. We're filming my pot roast recipe today, among other things." David's face broke into a huge smile. "Mom, that's amazing. Why didn't you tell me?" I wanted it to be a surprise. I didn't want to make a big deal about it in case it didn't work out. "Can we watch?" David asked eagerly. "I don't think," I started. "Actually," Jennifer stepped forward, extending her hand to David, "if you're her son, we'd love to interview you. We're talking to family members about Mrs. Sullivan's cooking, what it's meant to them over the years." David shook her hand enthusiastically. "I'd love to. Mom's cooking is legendary." Jennifer turned to Vanessa. "And you must be the daughter-in-law. Would you be willing to be interviewed as well?" The color drained from Vanessa's face. I don't think that's a good idea." "Why not? Family perspectives are wonderful for these pieces." Jennifer's tone was warm but professional. She had no idea about the context, about what had happened. "Jennifer," I said quietly, "maybe we should stick to the original plan." But David, oblivious to the minefield he was stepping into, was already talking. "Vanessa, this is so cool. Come on, let's go see Mom's setup." Before I could stop them, David had walked into the house, Vanessa trailing reluctantly behind. Jennifer and I exchanged a look. "Is there something I should know?" Jennifer asked quietly. "It's complicated," I murmured. "Do you want them to leave?" I thought about it. The petty part of me wanted Vanessa to see this, to understand that I wasn't just some outdated home cook. But the bigger part of me didn't want to cause drama, didn't want to ruin the filming. "Let's just see how it goes," I said finally. We returned to the kitchen, where David was exclaiming over the camera equipment and asking the crew questions. Vanessa stood near the doorway, her arms crossed, watching everything with wide eyes. "David," Jennifer said, "why don't you come sit here and we'll do a quick interview? Just tell us about your mom's cooking, what it's meant to you growing up." David sat eagerly in the chair they'd set up near the kitchen table. One of the cameramen adjusted the lights. Jennifer sat across from him with her questions. "So, David, tell us about your earliest memory of your mom's cooking." David's face softened. I was maybe 5 or 6. I'd had a really bad day at school. Some kids had been mean to me. I came home crying and Mom sat me down at the kitchen table and made me chocolate chip cookies from scratch. She let me help, let me crack the eggs and mix the batter. By the time the cookies came out of the oven, I'd forgotten all about the bad day. That's what Mom's cooking has always been for me: comfort, love, home. I felt tears welling up. Can you tell us about a specific dish your mom makes that's meaningful to you? Her pot roast. David didn't hesitate. It's my dad's recipe, well, my great-grandmother's recipe, technically, but Mom perfected it. Every time she makes it, it's like Dad's there with us again. He passed away 5 years ago, and some days I miss him so much it hurts. But when I eat Mom's pot roast, I can almost hear his voice, almost feel him there. That's not just cooking. That's magic. I had to turn away, wiping at my eyes. Even the crew looked moved. Has your wife had the opportunity to try your mom's pot roast? My heart stopped. I looked at Vanessa, whose face had gone pale. Yes, David said slowly, clearly just now realizing where this was going. She has. And what did she think? David's eyes met Vanessa's across the room. There was a long, loaded silence. She has different taste in food than I do, David said carefully. Jennifer, sensing tension but not understanding its source, tried to lighten the mood. Well, everyone has different preferences. That's what makes food so personal. Can I see the pot roast? David asked, clearly trying to change the subject. The one you're making today. It's resting, I said, grateful for the reprieve. It came out of the oven about an hour ago. Can I taste it, for old time's sake? I looked at Jennifer, who nodded enthusiastically. That would be great to capture on camera, actually. The son trying his mom's famous dish. I cut a slice of the pot roast, plated it with some of the vegetables and gravy. David took the plate, sat back down in the interview chair, and took a bite. His eyes closed. A smile spread across his face. This, he said to the camera, is what love tastes like. It was such a simple statement, so genuine, that everyone in the room felt it. I saw Jennifer wipe at her eyes. Even Marcus, who'd been fairly stoic all day, looked misty. David took another bite. I don't care what anyone says, this is the best food I've ever eaten. Not because it's fancy or trendy or innovative, because it's made with 40 years of practice and more love than you can measure. That's what makes it special. I couldn't help it. I looked at Vanessa. She was staring at David, at the pot roast, at me, her expression complex, shame maybe, mixed with something else. Thank you, David, Jennifer said warmly. That was beautiful. David finished his serving. He'd never been one to waste food and stood up. He came over and hugged me tight. I'm so proud of you, Mom, he whispered. After David's interview, Jennifer turned to Vanessa. Would you like to share your thoughts, as the daughter-in-law? Vanessa looked trapped. I really don't think. It would only take a few minutes, Jennifer pressed gently. We love getting different family perspectives. I could see Vanessa struggling. If she refused, it would look strange. But if she agreed, what would she say? Okay, Vanessa said finally. Her voice barely above a whisper. I'll do it. She sat in the interview chair, looking like she was facing a firing squad. Jennifer settled across from her. So, Vanessa, how long have you been part of the Sullivan family? 2 years. David and I got married 2 years ago. And what's your relationship with Margaret's cooking been like? Vanessa's eyes darted to me, then back to Jennifer. It's traditional, very traditional. Traditional can be wonderful. Comfort food, family recipes passed down through generations. That's what this show is all about. Right, Vanessa was clearly uncomfortable. Is there a particular dish of Margaret's that stands out to you? Another glance at me. The pot roast, she made it for us recently. Oh, wonderful. The same pot roast David was just raving about. What did you think of it? The room went very quiet. I could see David tense up, could see Vanessa's internal struggle playing out on her face. It was fine, she said finally. Just fine, Jennifer smiled, not realizing she was treading on dangerous ground. David seemed to think it was extraordinary. David's biased. He grew up eating it. But isn't that part of what makes family recipes special? The memories and emotions attached to them. I suppose. Vanessa's voice was getting tighter. But objectively speaking, it's just a basic pot roast. There's nothing innovative about it. I saw Jennifer's expression shift slightly. She was starting to pick up on something. Innovation isn't always necessary in cooking, though, is it? Sometimes the simple, time-tested recipes are the best. That's one perspective, Vanessa said. But cooking has evolved. There are so many advanced techniques now. Sous vide, molecular gastronomy. But those techniques weren't designed to replace traditional cooking, Jennifer interrupted, her tone still pleasant, but with an edge now. They were designed to complement it. Some of the best chefs in the world still make simple pot roasts and roasted chickens. Simplicity, when executed perfectly, is its own form of sophistication. Vanessa's jaw tightened. I just think that calling something the best when it's just basic comfort food is a bit of an overstatement. Basic comfort food, Jennifer repeated slowly. Is that how you describe Margaret's cooking? I'm just being honest. Everyone here is acting like her pot roast is this incredible, life-changing experience. But it's just meat and vegetables braised in wine. Anyone could make it. Then why don't they? Jennifer's voice was sharper now. Why do people still talk about Margaret's cooking years later? Why do her neighbors rave about her food? Why did she win the county fair blue ribbon 5 years in a row? If anyone could make it, why aren't they? Vanessa was visibly flustered now. I don't know. Maybe people around here just have low standards. The room went dead silent. Even Vanessa seemed to realize she'd gone too far. David's face was red with anger. The crew members were exchanging shocked looks. Jennifer stood up slowly. I think we're done here. Thank you for your time, Vanessa. Wait, I didn't mean. Vanessa started. It's fine, Jennifer said, her tone professional but cold. We have everything we need. Vanessa stood up, looking at David, then at me. Margaret, I think you should go, I said quietly. Both of you, thank you for stopping by. Mom, David began. Please, David, I need to finish filming. David nodded, looking miserable. He took Vanessa's arm and guided her toward the door. As they left, I heard him hiss at her. What the hell was that? After they left, the house was quiet for a moment. Then Jennifer turned to me. Margaret, I am so sorry. I had no idea there was history there. It's not your fault. You couldn't have known. Do you want to take a break? I looked around my kitchen, at the cameras, at the crew, at the food I'd been working on all day. At my grandmother's recipe, at the pot roast that Vanessa had called basic, at the pie cooling on the counter. No, I said, surprising myself with the firmness in my voice. Let's keep going. I want to finish this. Jennifer smiled. That's the spirit. Okay, everyone, let's reset. Margaret, why don't you tell us about the apple pie? We filmed for another 2 hours, and I poured everything into it. Every story, every technique, every ounce of love I had for cooking. By the time we wrapped at 6 in the evening, I was exhausted but energized. That was incredible, Jennifer said as the crew packed up. Truly, you're a natural on camera. When will it air? We need to edit everything, but probably in about 6 weeks. I'll send you the exact date. And Margaret, she squeezed my hand, don't let anyone make you doubt your gift. What you do is special. Never forget that. After everyone left, I sat in my quiet kitchen, surrounded by the remnants of the day's cooking. I should have felt triumphant. I should have felt vindicated. Instead, I just felt sad. My phone rang. David. Mom, I am so sorry. Vanessa's comments were completely out of line. We've been fighting ever since we left your house. David, it's okay. It's not okay. She insulted you, she insulted your cooking, she insulted our whole family. And on camera, what if they use that footage? They probably will, I said calmly. Jennifer seemed pretty upset. God, this is such a mess. Mom, I don't know what to do. Vanessa is my wife, but she keeps disrespecting you. I can't keep making excuses for her. Then don't David, I love you, you know that. But your marriage is your responsibility, not mine. You need to figure out what you're willing to accept and what you're not. She wants to come over and apologize. Again, would you be willing to talk to her? I thought about it. Part of me wanted to say no, wanted to protect myself from more hurt. But another part of me remembered being young and stupid, remembered making mistakes, remembered needing grace. Okay, I said, but not tonight. I'm exhausted, maybe this weekend. Thank you, Mom. I love you. I love you too, sweetheart. The rest of the week passed in a strange blur. I kept expecting to feel angry or hurt, but instead I just felt numb, like I'd used up all my emotional energy during filming and had none left. Patricia called every day, wanting updates, wanting to know how I was feeling. I told her I was fine, which was mostly true. Saturday morning, David called. Mom, is it okay if Vanessa and I come over around 11? She really wants to talk to you. Okay, I'll make coffee. You don't have to. David, I'm going to make coffee. It's what I do. At precisely 11, they arrived. I'd spent the morning stress cleaning, even though my house was already clean. Old habits. Vanessa looked terrible, dark circles under her eyes, her usually perfect hair pulled back in a messy ponytail, wearing jeans and a sweatshirt instead of her usual polished outfits. David looked worried and tired. I led them to the living room, brought out coffee and some store-bought cookies. I hadn't felt like baking and waited. Vanessa sat on the edge of the couch, her hands wrapped around her coffee mug. Margaret, I owe you an apology. A real one, not the half-hearted one I tried to give before. I waited. Everything I said about your cooking at the dinner during the interview was wrong. It was cruel and disrespectful and... She paused, seeming to struggle for words. And it came from a really ugly place inside me. What place is that? I asked quietly. She was silent for a long moment. Jealousy, I think, and insecurity. That surprised me. Jealous of what? Of how much David loves you. Of how he talks about your cooking, your home, your family traditions. Of how you seem to do everything so effortlessly. Keep a beautiful home, cook amazing food, maintain relationships. I work 60 hours a week and I can barely keep my apartment clean. She laughed bitterly. And when I do cook, it's mediocre at best. I can't make anything that David remembers and talks about years later. Vanessa, I started. No, let me finish, please. She took a shaky breath. My mom is a lot like me, career-focused, not particularly domestic. Growing up, we ate a lot of takeout and frozen dinners. When I met David and heard him talk about his childhood, home-cooked meals every night, baking cookies together, family dinners, I felt. She paused again. Less than, like I came from an inferior family. That's not true, I said gently. I know that now, or I'm starting to. But at the time, I dealt with those feelings by being dismissive, by convincing myself that your way of doing things was outdated, that my way, career, efficiency, modern convenience, was better. It was easier than admitting that I wished I'd had what David had. David was watching his wife with a mixture of sadness and understanding. When you made that elaborate dinner, Vanessa continued, I saw how much work you'd put into it, how much you cared. And instead of appreciating it, I felt threatened by it. Like you were showing me up, proving that I could never measure up. So I lashed out. I criticized your cooking because it was easier than facing my own insecurities. She finally looked up at me, and I could see tears in her eyes. I was wrong. Your cooking isn't outdated or basic or pedestrian. It's incredible. And the fact that a TV show wants to feature you proves that. I made a complete fool of myself on camera, and I deserve whatever humiliation comes from that. But I need you to know that I'm sorry. Truly, deeply sorry. It was the most honest, vulnerable thing I'd ever heard her say. Thank you, I said. I appreciate that. Is there any way, she hesitated, any way you could forgive me? I looked at this young woman, my son's wife, whether I liked it or not, and saw not the polished, confident person she usually presented, but someone struggling and scared and trying to find her place. Vanessa, I forgave you weeks ago. Even when I was hurt, even when I was angry, I forgave you. because that's what you do for family. Even after what I said during the interview. Even then, I set down my coffee cup. But I need you to understand something. My cooking, my home, the way I show love, that's not meant to make you feel inadequate. It's just how I was raised, what I know. You have your own gifts, your own way of showing love. There's room for both. I don't know how to show love like you do, Vanessa said quietly. Then learn, if you want to. But learn because you want to, not because you think you have to compete with me. David reached over and took Vanessa's hand. She squeezed it, then looked at me again. Would you maybe teach me? To cook, I mean nothing fancy, just basic things David loves. Of all the things I'd expected her to say, this wasn't it. You want me to teach you to cook? If you're willing, I know I don't deserve it after how I've treated you, but I'd really like to learn, not to prove anything to anyone, just for me and for David. I looked at my son, saw the hope in his face. Okay, I said, we can do that. Vanessa's face lit up with the first genuine smile I'd ever seen from her. Really? Really, we'll start small. Maybe next weekend, I'll teach you to make pot roast. She laughed, wiping at her tears. The famous pot roast, I think I owe it a rematch. We talked for another hour, the conversation easier than it had ever been. Vanessa told me about her job, about the pressures she faced, about her relationship with her own mother, which was complicated and distant. I listened, really listened, and started to see her as a person rather than just the woman who'd married my son. As they were leaving, Vanessa hugged me. A real hug this time, not the awkward embrace we'd done before. Thank you, she whispered, for giving me another chance. Everyone deserves second chances, I whispered back. After they left, I sat in my kitchen and cried. But they were good tears, healing tears, the kind that come when something broken starts to mend. The following Saturday, Vanessa arrived at my house at 9 in the morning, prompt and nervous. She was wearing jeans and an old t-shirt, her hair pulled back, no makeup. It was the most casual I'd ever seen her. I wasn't sure what to wear to a cooking lesson, she said apologetically. That's perfect. Cooking can get messy. I handed her one of my aprons, a cheerful red one with white polka dots. Ready. As I'll ever be. I'd prepared everything we'd need for the pot roast the night before: the meat, the vegetables, the wine, the herbs. Everything was laid out on the counter in neat rows. First rule of cooking, I said, is mise en place. It's French for everything in its place. Before you start cooking, you prep everything you'll need. It makes the actual cooking much less stressful. Vanessa took out her phone and started making notes. I smiled. You don't have to write it all down. Cooking is about feel, about intuition, about practice. You'll internalize it eventually. But what if I forget something? Then you improvise. That's the second rule of cooking. Nothing is so precious that it can't be adjusted or changed. Recipes are guidelines, not gospel. Over the next 3 hours, I walked Vanessa through every step of making pot roast. How to select good meat, how to sear it properly to develop flavor, how to build layers in a dish by caramelizing onions and deglazing with wine. She listened intently, asked questions, made mistakes, and laughed at them. Why does the recipe say to add the wine in stages? She asked. Because you're building flavor gradually. If you dump everything in at once, the flavors don't have time to develop and meld. It's like relationships, actually. You have to take time, let things develop naturally. She glanced at me, smiled slightly. That's profound for a pot roast. Cooking is profound. Food is one of the most fundamental ways humans connect. Every culture, every family, every relationship, they all involve sharing food. As the pot roast braised in the oven, filling my kitchen with that incredible aroma, we sat at the kitchen table with coffee. Can I ask you something? Vanessa said. Of course. Why do you love cooking so much? Like, really, what is it about it? I thought about how to explain something that had always just been part of who I was. When I cook, I'm connected to everyone who came before me. My grandmother, my mother, even people I never met but who passed down these recipes through generations. There's something sacred about that. And when I feed people, when I see them enjoy something I made, it's like I'm giving them a piece of that love, that history, that connection. I paused, looking at her. Food is the most intimate thing you can share with someone when you think about it. You're literally giving them something that will become part of their body, their energy. That's powerful. Vanessa was quiet for a moment. I never thought of it that way. Most people don't. They see it as just fuel, just necessity, but it's so much more than that. Is that why you were so hurt by what I said? I considered the question. Partly, but also, when you criticized my cooking, it felt like you were criticizing how I show love. Does that make sense? She nodded slowly. It does, and I'm sorry, again. I know you are. The timer went off. We checked the pot roast. It was perfect, the meat falling apart at the touch of a fork. We did it, Vanessa said, genuinely excited. You did it, I just supervised. We made mashed potatoes together. I taught her the trick of warming the butter and cream before adding them, how to achieve that perfect fluffy texture without overmixing. We made green beans, simple but perfect. When David arrived at 1 o'clock, we'd invited him for lunch. The table was set and the food was ready. Something smells amazing, he said, then stopped short when he saw Vanessa in an apron, flower in her hair, looking happy and proud. Nessa, did you? I made pot roast, she said, grinning. Your mom taught me, want to try it? We sat down together, the three of us, and ate the pot roast Vanessa had made. It wasn't quite as perfect as mine. The meat was slightly tougher, the gravy a touch thinner, but it was good, really good. This is incredible, David said, his voice thick with emotion. Nessa, this is really, really good. Your mom is an excellent teacher. And you're an excellent student, I added. It was one of the best meals I'd had in a long time, not because of the food itself, but because of what it represented. A bridge built, a relationship healing, a family coming together. Over the next few weeks, Vanessa came over every Saturday for cooking lessons. I taught her to make chicken soup, beef stew, roasted chicken, apple pie. She was a quick learner, attentive and enthusiastic. More importantly, we talked. Really talked. About her childhood, her fears, her dreams. About my life with Thomas, my years as a mother, my grief when he died. One Saturday, as we were rolling out pie crust together, she said, You know, I called my mom last week. We had the longest conversation we've had in years. Oh. I told her about the cooking lessons, about what you said about food being how you show love, and I asked her how she shows love, if not through cooking. What did she say? She said she shows it by making sure I had opportunities she never had, by pushing me to succeed in my career, by teaching me to be independent. Vanessa paused in her rolling, looking thoughtful. I'd always thought she just didn't care enough to cook for me, but maybe she was showing love in her own way. I'm sure she was. It doesn't make your way less valid, though, or less important. It's just different. Exactly. That same week, I got a call from Jennifer. Margaret, the episode is ready. It airs next Friday at 8 p.m. Are you excited? Excited, terrified, both. I think so, I said. Are you happy with how it turned out? It's beautiful. Honestly, it's one of the best episodes we've filmed. Your story, your recipes, David's interview, it all came together perfectly. There's something I need to tell you, though. My stomach tightened. What? We did use some of Vanessa's interview. Not much, just enough to show the contrast. To show that even within families, people can have different perspectives on food. But then we showed David's reaction, you continuing to cook despite the criticism, your grace in handling it. Margaret, you come across as incredibly strong and dignified. The message is clear. Your cooking stands on its own merit, regardless of anyone else's opinion. Oh, I didn't know how to feel about that. I hope that's okay. If you're not comfortable with it, we can re-edit, but it really does add depth to the episode. I thought about Vanessa, about how far we'd come, about our Saturday cooking lessons. It's okay, I said. It's part of